Oh, you said you were gonna do it.
Are you guys ready?
Yes. Well,
There
Peyton
you go.
already started filming.
Oh, okay. So here's our alpaca project and what pairs we think would be best with each other. So we did have a few things that we wanted to keep in mind before we did start our pairing process, and there's a couple of those things. The first thing is that we didn't have a lot of information for the females, so we had a lot more information for the boys, but that is not too much of a problem considering that the next generation will inherit a lot of the fiber traits from the male anyways. And then on Dallas, we did not have a lot of his information either, so those are some things we kept in mind.
All right, first pair, Bethany and Zen. So Zen we consider to be our best guy of the whole herd, and Bethany was top two probably. Bethany was. So they each have the SD hovering around 5 or 6, which is what you want it to be. Then their AFD is all around the 25-26 range, which is also good, in between 20 and 30. All right. Again, their fiber traits are really good, and Zen has the lowest AFD of all the males in the group, so he's killing it in that range. And Bethany and Zen are both the top 5 in their EPD SD, which is really good. And Zen also has above average ship scores. Bethany's were kind of average, so we hope that'll even out. Okay. Next slide. All right. In our second pair, Cleopatra and Tikanui. So our plan here was to balance out the fiber traits because Cleopatra was probably one of the bottom females in the herd, and Tikanui's probably top 2, top 3 in the herd. As you see, Cleopatra, not great fiber traits, but you can see Tikanui has he had great EPD, and he has pretty decent AFD and SD.
Cleopatra was kind of old too.
Yeah. As you can see, Cleopatra had more average ship scores, so towards the 2, 3 range, and Tikanui had good ship scores, so 3.5, 4 range, and we hope those will even out to be either 3.5 or 4 in that range.
So next up we have Milano and Torpedo. Torpedo was probably what we called our second best male, and Milano, she was okay. She's probably in the upper half of the average, like being average. She was better than average, but not like terribly great. She had a pretty standard AFD, still under 30, so it's not bad, but it's pretty close. Her standard deviation was not the best, but it also compared to the others, it wasn't awful. She had nothing above a 3.5 on her ship scores, so that was kind of not the best on a scale of 5. And then her percent of fibers greater than 30 microns was 35%, so that is something that you want to kind of watch out for. And then Torpedo, he had really good standard deviation and average fiber diameter. So his were very close to Zen, who we thought was our best male. He has really great next generation AFD and SD too. And he's in the top 1% of the next generation SD as well. So he also had nothing below a 3 on his ship scores. Milano, has a 0 on her uniform color, but we kind of didn't think that uniform color was something that you had to worry about so much, like it wasn't one of the deciding factors. So we didn't take that too far into mind. And then again, we kind of thought Milano isn't the best, but hopefully Torpedo will most of his traits will go on to the next generation and kind of take over and, make some good babies. And then we have White Gold and Arrow. This pair was they were probably what we would say is our most average pair. Nothing really stuck out too far. They both are kind of the same. They both have about the same AFDs and SDs. Arrow did have pretty good percentage of fibers greater than 30 microns, so it's only 26%. Arrow had nothing below a 3.0 on ship scores, so that was pretty good. So again, we keep saying this, but we kind of hope that the male would average out with the female. Our males were a lot better than our females were, so we're kind of hoping that they'll take on most of the traits. Most of their traits will be passed on.
Okay, so this was the first pairing that we put together, and it is, for us, we consider it our best pairing. So Sansa had the best AFD and SD of the girls. I think her SD was close to Bethany's, but since her AFD was so low, we considered her the best girl. And her fibers were also really low, which was good. But most importantly, Zen had the AFD of 26.8 and the SD of 5.8, which really wasn't that big of an outstanding from the other guys, but we considered him the best due to his next generation, mostly his SD, which was negative 0.54. It was in the top 5% for males, and that was a big thing. And so the other thing, which wasn't as important as their AFD and SD, but their ship scores, Sansa had a 5.0 on fineness, which I think is good for the fibers, which is what we were looking for. And then, like I said, Zen's in the top 5% for the next gen SD. And that's good because he already has such low of an SD that when he brought that down for the next generation, that is why we considered him better than the other males, because it would be lower. So, and then for our bad pairing, we have Cleopatra and Sundance, and they both had the highest AFDs of both groups, and so neither would pass on good traits, and neither would equal out the other, so it really was just a bad pairing. And they both have bad SDs, and both of their fibers above 30 microns are very high. So that was just another thing. And then the biggest reason was they have the same dad. So, and they both did have very below average fiber traits on their ship scores. Sundance had a few zeros, and so did Cleopatra. And I don't think either of them had anything above a 3 or 3.5. So that was why we consider them a bad pairing.
And none of the animals were related on their ARI scores, except for Zen was it Tikanui? Tikanui was Zen's son, so, yep. So none of them should interfere with it.